It's 2 a.m. You're scrolling videos of cute animals online, and all of a sudden, a new dream passes before your very eyes. The thought of having a fluffy little land cloud as an ornament for your front yard that you can shear into funny haircuts every single year and then spin the fiber by candlelight so you can knit hypoallergenic socks and blankets for all your friends and family come Christmas time. Seems like a great idea, but you, my friend, have just fallen victim to the same silly dream that I did almost 10 somewhat miserable years ago. In this video, we are going to bust some popularly held myths about alpacas, fix some sketchy math, do a little bit of a history lesson, and probably throw some cold water on your dreams of owning those silly little creatures. All right, myth busting time. Right off the bat, alpacas are not llamas. A lot of people seem to have the two confused. A llama is a 400-pound creature that is a very good guardian and has nice long banana ears and a really bad attitude. Alpacas, on the other hand, are much smaller than llamas. Ringo over there is about 75 pounds when he's wet. George is a little more robust at about 160 pounds. And Paul falls right in the middle at about 120 pounds. Do alpacas actually spit? The answer to that is a little complicated because while every time I post anything about my alpacas, the comment section is just, look out, they'll spit at you. And the reality is alpacas don't actually spit at people, they spit at each other. But unfortunately, sometimes people get in the way. I'm actually here with a gentleman right here who has made the purchase of my alpaca poncho TM necessary. Ringo, what do you have to say for yourself, sir? Fascinating stuff. Back to you, Adam. Myth. Alpacas are great family pets. If you want a family pet, get a golden retriever. Alpacas are basically aloof cats that live for 25 years. You get an alpaca when you're 25 years old, you better still want an alpaca when you're 50 years old, because you might still have one. Plus, they kind of suck at fetching. If you were to bottle feed a single alpaca and keep it as a house pet, for example, as I've seen some dummies on the internet do, it is very likely that alpaca will imprint upon you. And if it's a male alpaca, you could experience berserk alpaca syndrome, which is when a male alpaca gets so bonded to you that come teenager and adulthood, they will then try to play with you like a male alpaca would play with other male alpacas, which involves wrestling, jumping on, and chasing you around, constantly trying to bite your nuts off. Because have I mentioned their castration tooth? Yep. They've got one, and its sole purpose is protecting their own ability to spread their seed. And by the way, if you're wondering why he's constantly going, it's because alpacas talk by humming. They hum and let us know that they're nervous, uncomfortable, worried, or sometimes just having a grand old time. Ringo, that is unnecessary. Come on. And here's a quick reality check for anyone who's been watching so far and has seen me petting and cuddling Paul. I've had alpacas for 10 years. I've had Paul for 6 years. I'm his primary caregiver, and I've spent quite a bit of time with him. Even still, if it weren't for being in an enclosed area like this with him, I wouldn't be able to just grab him and pet him the way that I have been. And as you can see, when I don't move the way he wants me to, he quickly gets nervous and backs away. And this is Paul, the nice one, not Ringo or George. Ringo being the one who has little man syndrome to the max, and George being the one that, when I thought he was on the brink of death, nearly bucked me into next century. Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah. As you can see behind me, my alpacas are playing their favorite game, King of the Hill, which, surprise, surprise, Ringo is trying to be on top of the hill. always trying to prove himself. Another myth that shows up in my comment section constantly is that alpacas are great flock guardians. You've got a flock of chickens and you want to guard them, get an alpaca. Don't do that. Alpacas are not flock guardians. Llamas can be sometimes in some circumstances, but alpacas are prey animals and therefore are going to be far more concerned with their safety and the safety of their friends than the safety of your livestock. In 10 years of alpaca ownership, I will say that there have been times they've alerted us to danger. However, in our experience, with Ringo specifically right here, this guy with major little man syndrome, he has actually been a far greater danger to our livestock than he has ever done in actually protecting them from anything. In fact, we had another set of alpacas when we lived in Washington, and they could coexist and live with our goats and our donkeys no problem. But after about 6 months of these guys living with our animals here, we decided absolutely no longer worth it, and now they have to have their own separate paddocks, separate everything, and that's a real pain in the butt. I do, however, want to show you a clip of an alpaca making the world's craziest noise. Do you mind? I'm not even wearing my poncho yet, you little jerk. Alexander and I are just out here minding our own business, watching the sunset, hanging out with all of the calves, and what do our ears hear? But the sweet, murderous screaming of the alpacas chasing each other around, trying to bite each other's nuts off. One of the only reasons we are still talking about alpacas in the year 2026 is because alpacas in the 1990s were part of a giant pyramid scheme that caused thousands of families to totally lose their shirt. Someone who was really, really good at marketing came up with the idea to market alpacas as the softer, hypoallergenic, superior to wool in every way fiber. Alpacas were being shipped in by the hundreds and auctioned off for ungodly amounts of money. Back then, a breeding male could go at auction for up to $750,000. Let that sink in for a second. That's more than we paid for our entire farm. And it's especially ridiculous when you consider that a male alpaca can now sell for about $200. And that's if you can sell them at all. There are thousands of alpacas constantly needing to be rescued, and that's in fact how I came to own my very first alpacas in the first place. They needed a good home, and I thought that I would be that. Let's talk about the alpaca bubble and why it burst. Quite simply, alpaca math does not math. I did the math on paper so that we can really make it make sense here. Alpacas are sheared once a year. An average shearing yields 4 to 10 pounds of fiber. Alpaca fiber is valued at $2 an ounce as opposed to 11 cents an ounce for sheep's wool. So from that standpoint, yeah, alpaca fiber is way more valuable than sheep's wool. Alpaca fiber is softer. It's hypoallergenic. It has an 85% greater wicking capacity, which means it will take your sweat away from your feet if you're wearing alpaca socks on a hike. All great things so far. It's also not nearly as itchy as sheep's wool. Sold, sold, sold. Possibly not surprisingly, there isn't actually a huge market for this, so a lot of alpaca owners will have their alpaca fleeces turned into yarn. It generally costs $32 to hire a shearer. However, good luck finding a shearer who's going to come for 2 or 3 alpacas, and they're certainly not going to charge $32 an animal if they do. It costs $30 to ship the fiber to the mill, $50 to wash, dry, and pick the fleece, $140 to mill, and with a 30% loss of fiber during the milling process, that 5-pound fleece will yield about 3.5 pounds of yarn. Return shipping is $20, but most mills currently have a 1-year wait time. Alpaca yarn goes for about $125 a pound, so the total value minus expenses for the year's fiber as yarn will be $165.50 for potential profit. However, to keep these little jerks alive for a year, assuming we don't have any catastrophic vet bills, monthly feed and minerals for my alpacas with our feed regimen equals out to about $300 a year to feed water and mineral these guys. $165.50, which is the potential profit for our yarn, minus that $300 a year equals negative $134.50 per alpaca per year. And that's not including any of our labor, time spent with them, therapy bills, etc. If Dave Ramsey were sitting here and you were to ask him, should I get an alpaca as a wise financial investment, he would laugh in your face. In fact, I think someone did ask him that on the show once, and this is what happened.
That's a good way to lose all your money. Again, I'm not an expert, but it just sounds weird.
Speaking of bad investments, come into my office really quick. Buying a whole bunch of antique spinning wheels so I could someday restore them and then one day use them to fulfill that dream of spinning my alpaca fiber by candlelight. It turns out that was a horrible investment, but behind my secret door is a very good investment. Come here. I will say though that there was also some bad measurement involved in making this secret door. But if we come up here, Dave Ramsey himself would be so proud of how thrifty I was able to be in building this space up here and converting this hayloft into a nap central for Alexander so that we can work while he's napping down where the work actually happens here in the barn. The whole idea for this space started when I was sleeping on a very uncomfortable cot in our barn every time I was waiting for my goats to have babies. And that mattress is pretty much the biggest improvement from that cot you could possibly imagine, which brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Brooklyn Bedding. Every time we need to upgrade a mattress, it is a no-brainer to choose Brooklyn Bedding because we love them so much. I have slept on this mattress more times than I can count, and it is by far the comfiest mattress I've ever slept on, which is actually why, as we were replacing other mattresses around the farm, we got this mattress over and over and over again. This is the Aurora Luxe cooling mattress, and I don't know how the technology works, but when it's 105 degrees outside all summer long here, having that cooling technology to keep you nice and cool, but still cozy under the blankies is a huge plus. As a maker myself, I really appreciate that Brooklyn Bedding owns every step of the manufacturing process because they design, assemble, and ship their mattresses all from their factory in Arizona. That also means that there's no middleman creating price markups every step of the way. And the way Brooklyn Bedding ships their mattresses is also pretty cool, especially when it came to getting this mattress up and around the stairs here, because it's something that one really strong or two medium strong people can do together. Because I can be a bit of a Goldilocks when it comes to mattress firmness and all the other features that you can choose from, one really cool thing about Brooklyn Bedding is that they have a quiz online that helps you pick the right mattress for you. But then they go even further. They give you 120 nights to sleep on your mattress and decide, is this really the right fit for you? Because if it's not, they'll give you your money back. So whether you need a cozy spot to crash while you're waiting for your animals to have babies, or you need an adult sleep spot in your nursery, or maybe you just need to upgrade your own mattress, go to brooklynbedding.com/AnnofAllTrades or use the code AnnofAllTrades at checkout and you will get 30% off of your purchase as well as a mattress shipped for free to your door. Remembering that all of these basically came from a pyramid scheme way back when, it's important to think about the fact that everyone who was trying to save their own shirt financially as the alpaca bubble was bursting in 2008 was breeding these things like crazy in hopes of having stock to sell, but very few of those people were actually breeding for quality of fiber or make them very useful for us as hobbyists either. The other thing that makes it really hard to get good quality fiber from your alpacas is alpacas doing alpaca things every day, like rolling around in the mud to help their itchy skin, like running through briar patches because they want to get that one good bite right at the very top of the field. And all of that daily activity is regularly putting wear and tear on the fiber. It gets really, really dirty. It gets all kinds of snags inside of it. And really? Excuse you. Did I mention that alpacas kick? The way most alpaca farmers will protect their fiber is by putting protective coats around the alpacas and forcing them to wear it 24/7, or by putting them in tiny little paddocks so that they can't frolic around and ruin their fiber. And in this climate, which is already way too hot for alpacas to actually live a good life, putting a coat on them is the absolute worst thing I can imagine doing for them. Even with the absolute best genetics and the best care of the alpaca and their coat all season long, the quality of the fiber that you actually harvest to use is made or broken by the quality of the shear. So you can learn how to shear yourself. You can hire a shearer if you can actually find one to come out and do it for you. But sheep shearing and alpaca shearing are very different. And if you don't have the right shears at peak sharpness, done just at the right time and just the right way, your fiber is basically useless. And if you botch your shearing job, that ruins your fiber for the whole year. Like, you don't get multiple clippings a year from these guys, you get one shot. And if you're learning to do it yourself, that means that you get one chance a year to practice that skill. That's not a very efficient way to learn, which is actually why I used to help our neighbors shear and would go 28 alpacas at a time, and I'm still not that good at it. But it is really fun to make them look like little llama pups, and I've really enjoyed that. We've also done a lion's mane and a dinosaur haircut. That one didn't really look that good. General shenanigans. A quick side note about shearing, especially if you live somewhere like Tennessee that has about 42 seasons every year, is that the timing of your shearing is extremely important, because if you shear too early, your alpacas will freeze to death. If you shear too late, your alpacas will die of heat stroke. So good luck with that gamble. All that to say that if you're looking for a good source of fiber, eat an apple. The one myth to rule them all is that alpacas are cheap, easy keepers. In the right environment, maybe they could be. But in my 15 years of farming in multiple locations, I have never once encountered any other animal that is any better than alpacas at constantly inventing new creative ways to die. Come on, guys, let's go. Come on, boys. Just walk right on past. You're good. You're good. Good boy. Anytime you take an animal out of its natural habitat and try to make it do something it wasn't naturally designed to do, you're going to be fighting nature every step of the way, and that makes everything you have to do with that animal that much harder. And alpacas are probably the most perfect example of that. Alpacas are naturally mountain dwellers, and there are not flat, lush pastures of grass in the mountains. They are not, as so many people seem to think that they are, cute, fluffy lawnmowers. They'll pick at and nibble at some grass here and there, but alpacas in their natural habitat are browsers, not grazers. They're really good at eating a little bit of this branch here and a bite of this tree there, and most of that stuff grows above their shoulder line, and that is by design. Poop and pee are breeding grounds for parasites, which are alpaca's enemy number one. You want your alpacas reaching up and eating above their neckline where the parasites are not, which will make your parasite management a whole lot easier. Let's talk about alpaca poop for a second. Alpacas, when sick, are really stoic sufferers. It's really hard to know that there's actually something wrong with them until it's almost too late. But we can tell a whole lot about the health of our herd simply by looking at their poop. A little clumpy poop is the sign that there's maybe some diarrhea going on, and that's often signaling a parasite issue. If there's ever mucus or blood in the poop, that can be a sign of a more advanced parasite infection or all kinds of other things that we really want to start keeping an eye on. But as alpaca shepherds, our first line of defense is getting a handful of poo. If you're not as eager as I am to look at poop, you could also look at some signs in your own animals. When you're doing a little cuddle sesh, pull their eyelid back. By the way, they don't like that. And look at the color of their eyelid. Look at the color of the pad of their mouth. When their under eyes and their mouth pads start to get a little white, you know that they're dealing with anemia, which is generally a pretty good sign they are dealing with parasites. And another thing, if you're thinking about getting an alpaca, you need to know that you can't just get one. And that's not because it's like Pokemon, you gotta catch them all. It's because alpacas are herd animals. And Unfortunately, I know all too well that you also can't just have two, because if the worst happens and you lose one, you can't leave it alone. So you've got to at least get three and have a backup plan. And that may sound horrible to say, but taking a herd animal out of the herd and then put into solitary conditions is torture for that animal. You are not an alpaca. You are not going to be a good companion for your alpaca. A goat is not a good companion for your alpaca. Your pet cat or your bearded dragon is not an okay companion for an alpaca that needs alpaca buddies. Now, if you clicked on this video because the title gave you some major rage bait and you wanted to come yell at me for telling everyone not to get animals, I think you can look around me here on the farm and see that I love animals. I actually care so deeply about the animals that are in my care that I shudder to think of anyone being as ill-prepared as I probably was when I got some of the animals that I originally got. I had to learn a lot of really hard lessons the hard way. An alpaca in my care died from what turned out to be something I could and should have been able to prevent if I knew to look out for the signs. And I don't want that for you. I don't want it for you on your farm, and I don't want it for the animals under your care. Alpacas have far and away been my greatest teachers when it comes to animal husbandry because of how dang difficult it has been to keep them alive. I have had to learn so much about veterinary care because I can't seem to find a vet who knows how to take care of alpacas better than I do. I've had to learn so much about parasite management, the importance of nutrition and mineral balance, and how to handle a prey animal that is not very accustomed to humans in an environment where there's lots of humans around all the time. I've had to learn to shear them myself. I have nearly sustained serious injuries. I've had to overcome some serious sensory issues to grind alpaca teeth. Because, by the way, alpaca teeth never stop growing. And if their jaw is not perfectly aligned the right way and they're not eating their ideal forage 24/7, their teeth never stop growing. And George had some serious English teeth going on. And I think you know what I mean there. And so, my friends, if you don't want to become an alpaca behavioral psychologist, an amateur dentist, and a part-time shearer, please do not get an alpaca. If you want a golden retriever, get a golden retriever. If you want a great source of hypoallergenic fiber that may or may not actually be usable fiber, and you do actually want to learn how to shear or find a good shearer and find a good alpaca vet and do all the things that you need to do to actually take care of an alpaca well, then by all means, get an alpaca. Don't ever actually get one alpaca, because for the love of all things good and holy, if you are going to alpaca, please alpaca responsibly. Isn't that right?